Hi, sharks. It is financial sharktress Galitza Deek here. Uh, all right. So this week we've got a hard topic. Sorry I wasn't on last week. I was so bagged and just was it was a crazy week. But we got to talk about something that went on, and that is what is going on in the banks, right? So if you've been watching the news recently, you'll know that, or you'll see that three banks, one that was very popular, Silicon Valley Bank, collapsed. Um, and why it happened is something that we should tackle, and it also is something that we should be aware of, and we need to learn, the things that we can do to protect ourselves. um, Silicon Valley Bank was very much invested in venture capital. They were the venture capital bank, right? What happens in a bank, right, is you put your money in the bank. They don't sit on that money. They go take that money and they use it to make more money. In general, a bank will diversify the ways in which they make more money. The problem, one of the biggest problems with Silicon Valley Bank is that they did not do this. They did not diversify as much as they should have. And they had it invested in long term bonds, which, when the interest rates went up, weren't worth as much anymore. And then, so they tried to fix this by starting to diversify. What happened was people started to notice and then panic, and they pulled their money out. When everybody rushes to the bank to pull their money out, and especially the people that are rushing to the bank are the people that have large amounts being held in the bank, right? Because FDIC will only insure up to 250,000. So anyone that was that had more than 250,000 in the bank starts to panic, because anything above 250,000 is not insured. Um, they start to panic. They want to pull out their money before the money runs out. What that did was create a collapse. Now, this is a huge problem, right? Once one thing collapses, then the banks associated with it collapse. It also creates panic in the industry, and more people want to pull their money out of banks. So it starts a chain event. And there were many issues with Silicon Valley Bank and how they were running it. There's another issue in that regulators didn't necessarily identify these issues. They had recently been through an audit. And so I'm interested to see what happens when that is investigated, right? Because there are, banks have to go through audits that determine whether the bank is operating correctly. Um, and nothing was picked up in these audits. So that's like one thing. The other thing is, on our side, as people that have to use banks and put money in a bank, what can we do to make sure that we are being taken care of and that we do not lose money? So, number one thing, um, do not have more than what is FDIC insured in the bank. Now, for the instance of Silicon Valley, um, the government has decided, that all the depositors will be covered. That is not always going to be the case. I would stick to, I'll be talking to a lot of people. You'll think it won't be relevant to you, but it might be at some point. And then there are people that I know that this is relevant to them. Do not have more than what is FDIC insured in that bank. The other big thing is when you're looking at banks, when you're looking at a credit union, especially when you are looking at an online bank account, make sure that the bank account that you choose, that the bank that you choose is FDIC insured. That is a big one. So, especially with online banks, right? Because sometimes that's not something that you're looking at. I want that to be the first thing you look at. One, are they FDIC insured? Two, I am not putting more than what is FDIC insured into one particular bank. So that's $250,000 for an individual. It's $500,000 for a joint account with with your spouse. So that's two things. Now, the third thing is you also want to diversify. It's not just the banks that have to diversify. You also want to diversify. So this is not the time to start panicking and pulling money out of the market. You want to make sure it's also not the time to just put all your money into risky stocks. You want to make sure that there's a balance. And especially right now when there's high interest being offered, you can get CDs for really decent amounts of interest right now. If you still want to make sure that that money is safe and you're putting it in a non-risky investment, if you're willing to lock it away for 6 months, a year, 18 months, 3 years, 5 years, you can get some pretty decent interest rates on those. Think about mutual funds, think about stock market, putting it in the stock market. Make sure that you have your money spread out over multiple places. And another thing is if you don't have more than $250,000 in the bank right now, do not panic. And you do not have to worry about pulling your money out of the bank right now. You are insured for that. You will be covered. There is something to say about let's think about going forward, doing more research or, putting more, maybe like leaning towards more government regulation of the banks and how they are treating your money and diversifying. But that's not something that you have to think about today. What you have to think about today is not panicking. If you were one of those people that had money in Silicon Valley Bank or Signature Bank, you're covered right now. I would not, freak out. It sucks that in our lifetime, or in my lifetime, I've seen now what seems like 2 separate bailouts for banks. And the fact that they are mismanaging money, not only mismanaging money, but giving bonuses and, those types of things are really affecting me. I don't think that should be something that we allow to keep happening. But on the other hand, banking is something that we have to keep using. And it's something that we need. And I'm not I will say my personal, I'm not panicking and pulling money out. I'm making sure that I'm diversified. I'm making sure that I do not have too much in any one bank, in any one account. And I'm making sure that I'm continuing with my investments and everything else that I was doing up until now. So if you want to look into CDs, if you want to look into buying bonds, all of those things are things that we should think about right now. Will there be other banks that collapse? Perhaps. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you are covered. Understand that, we might be going through somewhat of a reset here where we see that the Silicon Valley had a heavy concentration in tech companies. And we see also with, layoffs happening in tech companies that there's something going on in that market, right? So we want to make sure that we lean towards banks that are more diversified. But as long as we stay within our FDIC insured limit, that's not a huge issue. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you want to understand how to diversify your money or have questions about your specific situation, you can feel free to reach out to me. Financial Sharktress on all social media. You can also email me, galit@financialsharktress.com. We can set up a meeting. I have free discovery calls where I will literally spend 15 to 30 minutes just giving you as much information as I possibly can for free. And then if you decide to work with me, we can work something out. But I don't want anyone to panic right now. What's going on, I admit, is a little scary. It just makes us realize, even though we've gotten so much better since 2008, we are still not there with the regulation and still not there with banks doing what they should be doing. But we are in a different place than we were then. And as long as you are making sure that you are in an FDIC insured bank and you are below the limit, it doesn't affect you in this moment. So I'm watching and seeing how it shakes out, and I will be updating you. If you got any questions on that, please feel free to ask. Share this with whoever you think needs to hear it. And we will speak we will speak next Monday. If you're part of my Facebook group, Righteous Revenue Fishbowl, then we also have a podcast episode coming up this Wednesday, which I'm super excited for. If you're not part of that group and you're watching this on YouTube or somewhere else, feel free to look up Galit Speaks, and that's where I talk about everything besides money. And if you have any other topics that you want me to go over on Money Mondays, let me know, and we'll talk about those topics. Have an amazing night, and I will see you all next week. Thank you, Sharks. Bye.